We're going to talk about actually developing a project schedule, and how you go about doing that. Um, what you're trying to do is that you're trying to time order your tasks and identify potential conflicts between people who are working these things, and make certain that you can get your schedule done, your project done by your constrained time. Uh, that kind of a schedule is going to be a very useful tool for you to monitor how you're progressing through the project. Okay, so you need to do this exercise. So the following steps are as such. Again, this is a very simple in principle process. Define your WBS. Determine which tasks are dependent upon the completion of other tasks, i.e. what that precedence is between tasks. Identify any time lags, things that are going to take some time for shipping, for things to come in, or if you're going to do a printed circuit board, how long it's going to take for that printed circuit board to come back from the vendor. And then roll up your time estimates from your bottom level WBS. Who is going to be doing what? Assign your task to individual people and resolve conflicts. As we'll talk later, you can't have a single person work on two things at the same time. That just isn't going to work. Then you have your milestone dates. And are those milestones happening on the dates that they need to happen on? And if not, then you got to do your trade-offs. You have to adjust things around and implement changes in order to get yourself back on schedule. Is your WBS complete? If you have not identified all your tasks or timelines, then quite likely your planned schedule is going to be bad. You aren't going to be able to have confidence in that schedule. Are your work packages at time estimates accurate? Any uncertainty like padding that you put into those work packages for the time estimates, that's all going to propagate upward as you do that roll up. What is the dependency of these tasks? What kinds of tasks have to be accomplished in sequence rather than in parallel? If you have tasks which require one to be before two, to be before three, etc., then it doesn't matter how many people that you assign to that project, because you aren't going to be able to break that dependency. You're always going to be sequential on this. If you can have tasks which are in parallel, like for example, you're making 10 of the same thing, each one of those 10 tasks can be run in parallel. Therefore, if you have 10 people, you can accomplish making 10 of them in the same amount of time that you would make one with one person. So the task dependency and parallelization is very important to determine. What about your personnel? Are they going to be available for a given time? No individual can focus on more than one task at a time. That there is a myth called multitasking. All right, multitasking does not exist. Okay, if you look carefully at anybody who is quote multitasking unquote, they are actually doing tasks sequentially. They may be doing multiple. They may be doing sequential tasks, several different sequential tasks in a time period, but they're still doing sequential tasks. And this is actually backed up by cognitive studies on these things. Your brain just can't shift. Your brain is focused on one item to another. To some extent, listening to music while you study is not very effective, because what's going on, they actually did cognitive studies about this, that if you look at what's going on in the brain, your brain is actually rapidly switching between listening to the music and doing the studying, back and forth like that. And so it's not as effective as just focusing on the effort. So there is no such thing as multitasking. All right. It's one step at a time, and you need to take that into account when you do your project. Also, how effective are your personnel? Um, a person who has a very, very heavy course load is not going to be as effective as somebody who is who does not, who is maybe taking 1 or 2 courses, can devote much more time to the project. So you have to determine what the effectiveness of individual people actually are. All right. When you're producing this schedule, there's a certain amount of required information. You've got to organize your WBS. I mean, there's a first level of organization that you have to determine and identify. You have to get all of your major tasks, subtasks, and milestone events identified. Once you put these things into a WBS, you're already in some kind of a time ordering, quite likely in there. Next step is to make certain that you understand what's your task precedence. We just talked about this, parallel versus sequential in this. And then your milestone events. Any of these milestone events that have a fixed date, you know that you have fixed date milestones in this project. We gave you these milestone dates a while back. And in fact, your first schedule involves your fixed date milestones that will be in your PDR document, right? There are going to be time lags. You're going to order something and it's going to take time for that order to come through. There are going to be holidays. There's going to be exam schedules. There's going to be time off, etc. So you need to identify what those time lags are in your schedule. After you get all that basic information available and ready to go, you can begin coding the schedule. And so there's a couple of programs that you can use for that coding. One that I've been using for a long time is called Microsoft Project. Aaron is going to talk to you about a free version of a project scheduling software called Libra Project. Aaron, is that right? I think. All right. But was that it?
Yes.
Okay. And so Aaron's going to talk to you a little bit about that right after I finish here. Get one of those one of those type of codes and be using that. Enter in your WBS, right? And many times the software will help you establish this tree structure relationship between task and subtasks. Put in your lags, right? Your shipping time or your other types of things as tasks in your WBS, because that is going to take up time. At your lowest level, you would have your time and your estimates for your cost and time. Milestone events are zero duration. They are basically things that are delivered around them. Then put in your predecessor information, which tasks or which milestones depend upon previous tasks. Make certain you take into account things like holidays, exam schedules, etc. So, right, after you do that, look at the characteristics of your personnel. Who are you going to assign to what task as you go? Every person is going to have different capabilities, different amount of time that they can devote to the project, different hours that they'll be able to do. Some of your colleagues on your team might be available only on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Others might be available, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. And you have to take into account some of these things. There can be lags that are associated with your personnel. Try to keep your tasks as parallel as you possibly can. Personnel availability, all right? Individuals cannot work on multiple tasks at the same time, okay? Don't assign 2 different tasks to the person to be working on at the same time. That's just, it's just not going to happen. Be careful about you're doing that. This is what's called, assigning that. Also, personnel effectiveness has to be taken into account. There is a difference between time on task and calendar time. If a task requires 40 hours of work, okay, a normal 100% efficient worker will need 1 week of calendar time to do that. So there are 8 working hours in a particular day, and there's 5 working days during a week, during a 7-day week. So that's 40 hours of time. If your person assigned to that task can only work or focus on that task for 10 hours a week, then 4 calendar weeks are going to go by before that task is complete. You need to understand there's a difference between time on task and calendar time, and take that into account. Personnel characteristics. This is a issue for Microsoft Project. We won't go into that a lot of detail. Would talk several times about try to keep your scheduled tasks in parallel as much as you possibly can. Your WBS and task definitions, well, if you've done it right, will probably reveal which types of tasks could be done in parallel. Somebody might be working on software design and development while another person is working on mechanical design and development. Those could be run in parallel. Also, take advantage of time lags that are sort of natural. If parts for component A require a week to be delivered, well, then the design for component B can be happening while you are waiting for those parts to come in. You can schedule that in your task. Make certain that you're consistent with these tasks. If you run your calculation, your schedule out, and you find out that you can't complete your payload delivery until September of 2022, you got a problem, all right? You've got to make certain that your schedule is consistent with your known constraints with it. As you go through your project, it's important that you do this kind of scheduling now, okay, in your early stages. And then as you go through your project, track your progress, right? Check off the things that you have accomplished as you go through that schedule. Make certain that you are running on time. And if you aren't, do something about it. Change how it is that you're working. Increase the number of personnel. Reassign tasks to more efficient personnel. Decrease the capability of or the performance of your payload. Something. You need to do something in order to keep on that schedule.